So the New Zealand team didn't exactly end their 2021 season on a particularly high note, but can the new team do something a little bit special? What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. Welcome back to the series we've been doing, checking out all of the teams that have been announced for the July International for the wonderful world of international rugby. We've done a bunch of teams already. We've got Wales, South Africa, Australia, Scotland. I think there's more. They've just done so many. I'm beginning to lose track. There are more teams that I'm trying to keep up to date as best as possible. So today, of course, I'm wearing black. We will be talking about the All Blacks, New Zealand. Now, New Zealand ended their year last year with a couple of losses, both to France and Ireland. And actually, just before filming this, I wanted to check out what their odds are now for the World Cup. And those two losses, especially when they've lost to a team like France and Ireland, who they may well be playing in that World Cup, actually sees New Zealand now 3-1 going into this World Cup. They're still second favourites going into the World Cup. But it's as old as I've been allowed to look at betting sites and stuff. I've always seen New Zealand as the absolute top choice. So interesting to note that going into the 2023 World Cup, unless New Zealand are going to make some big changes, it looks like France could be going in as favourites. So in terms of today's video, we're going to be looking through the New Zealand team that has been announced that's going to be playing Ireland over 3 games. These are 3 games I'm really excited to watch. I think there's going to be some hard matches. I absolutely loved the game we got to see in the autumn, and I can't wait to just see those 3 again. So what we'll do, as we've done with all the other videos, we'll check the teams over here so that we can all have a bit of a look through them. I've taken this one directly from the Twitter page of the All Blacks Rugby, so hopefully everything is right. We've had a couple of issues of trying to find some fun graphics for you guys to look at. So we'll have a run through. We'll start off with the forwards. So starting off, we're mixing up a bit today here. So we'll start off with the hookers today. Normally we start off with the props. So we've got Dane Coles, Samsoni Taukei'o, and Cody Taylor. Now, again, apologies for any terrible pronunciations. I really try my best when it comes down to the Southern Hemisphere teams, but there's a couple of names that will just strike me as being new. Now, Dane Coles and Cody Taylor are 2 names I know of. I imagine in terms of favourites going in, then people might be looking towards Dane Coles potentially. A very aggressive player, tries to get in your face, but does get himself up that pitch, and you do see him really pushing for that. Cody Taylor is also quite a fast player as well in terms of being a hooker. Speed is becoming a big thing now in the world of hookers, so Cody Taylor might be going on in there to try and get that little injection of speed. We've seen what the Ireland team has in terms of speed in that Six Nations, so you know, you've got to have speedy hookers, so I don't think that's a terrible choice there. In terms of the props, we've got George Bauer, Nepo Laulala, Aidan Ross, Angus Tarveo, Carl Tuakoafi, and Offa Tuangafasi. Now, a lot of big names in there, literal, and also in terms of sort of caps and stuff. A lot of experience there, realistically. I did get to see a lot of these lads playing when I watched the Super Rugby Aotearoa last year, 2 years ago. And there's a lot of big names in here, and some of these lads really like to get in the middle of it. In terms of favourites going in, I really don't know. I don't know anything about Aidan Ross. It'll have to be a bit of a new one. Make sure you drop down in the comments who we should be looking out for in this team. They haven't got a lot of uncapped players in this team, but some big names in there. They've obviously tried to mix it up a little bit now, so nice to see that. In terms of the locks, this is a really strong area for New Zealand in terms of looks, just by looking at the screen here. So we've got Scott Barrett, Josh Lord, Brodie Retallick, Tupou Vai, and Samuel Whitelock, or Sam Whitelock, as most people probably refer to him as. Now, this is a strong set of locks. No sort of shyness in terms of inexperience here. Josh Lord is a name I've had to become more familiar with. He's one of the later ones in. But Scott Barrett, Brodie Retallick, Sam Whitelock, you know, these lads are playing absolutely top performance at the minute. They're all playing teams like the Crusaders and stuff, which I know have been doing pretty well. I think Crusaders and Blues are still currently top in terms of the Super Rugby. So, you know, it's nice to be seeing a lot of these lads come in. Of course, Barrett is the name that it's just synonymous now with the New Zealand team. Too many Barretts in this team. But I think there's a real strength here. Brodie Retallick's certainly been improving again. I did think Brodie Retallick had a bit of dip in form, but it's nice to see that he's slowly beginning to climb back up. Sam Whitelock, not captain for this tour. I know Sam Whitelock does tend to take over the captaincy quite a lot at the Crusaders, and has captained a few games for New Zealand, so I think that's an interesting move, but we'll get on to the flankers and talk a bit about that. In terms of the back rows then, Sam Cane is going to be taking over the captaincy. Now, he's captained actually quite a few games, so I don't think that's a terrible move there. I'm not sure New Zealand have fully cemented who they want to be the captain going into that World Cup, so I think now is a good time to allow a couple of different people to have a go at it and see how they get on in terms of captaincy, just to move towards that World Cup, or in terms of people get injured in a World Cup, you have someone who's more than capable of moving in there. So Sam Cane's a good player, and he's definitely a good captain. Akira Ioane, Dalton Papali'i. I think Dalton Papali'i is awesome, by the way. When I saw him in the Super Rugby, and then I've even seen highlights of him again this year. He's playing for the Blues still, I believe. And I've seen highlights from him. He's just looking awesome. He's such a weird number 7. I think of him in that flanker position at number 7. But he's such an odd number 7. Not only is he good in terms of the tackle and the breakdown situation in terms of jackling, but he's also really, really quick. The first year I saw the Rugby Aotearoa, I think he was easily in like the top 5 try scorers throughout the whole tournament, competing with wingers like Will Jordan and stuff. Like, that is incredible for a number 7. Great speed, but also a great support runner. I really want to see him have a bit more time at international. I don't really think we've got to see him enough yet. I would like to see him get a bit more game time. Ardie Savea, of course he's in. He's never going to not be in this team. Hoskins Sotutu, and finally Sawakula, who's going to be a new debutant at some point during this series. Not someone I know a great deal about, but people like Hoskins Sotutu, Akira Ioane, these lads are coming up now. These are names we will be seeing in these New Zealand teams more and more, I think. Akira Ioane's made a big storm, and Hoskins Sotutu is also they offer very different styles in terms of this back row to the other replacements. I think it's really nice. They've got a nice spread there. A good spreading of caps, I would say, throughout the forwards. Not a great deal of new caps, but a couple in there, just to give people a bit more experience. A team like Ireland, certainly a tier 1 nation by great means. So, it's a good experience to get these lads on to play teams like Ireland. In terms of the backs then, some big switch-ups here. Finley Christie coming in. It's nice to see him get into this New Zealand team. Finley Christie plays at a really high standard. I do see him quite a lot, actually, and he really sort of gives quite a lot for this team, so it's nice to see him get a chance here. Folau Fakatava, I'm going to guess his name is. I don't know anything about this lad. I've not even heard his name before. Coming on as a new debutant. I'm sure some people can drop down about that. He must be good to be getting into this New Zealand team, because we're going to be finishing off with Aaron Smith. Of course, probably the most capped scrum half, I would say, in New Zealand at the minute. The experience, and he plays really well just every game. Do you ever really see Aaron Smith have a bad game? But some big people missing here. No TJ Piranara in the side. I don't believe there's an injury. I just believe people have been picked over him. So Fakatava must be a good player in order to be overtaken like TJ Piranara. Brad Webber. No, Brad Webber, I've seen quite a lot from him recently. Obviously not getting to the side. I'm not sure about injury status of a couple of these players, but, to pick just a 3 solid scrum halves, that's what you're going with. It must show the talent that they believe these 3 lads had. They're going to carry towards a World Cup. But like I say, I haven't heard anything about injuries, so I believe everyone's fit, so big calls there. In terms of the fly half, Beauden Barrett. Yes, of course he is. Why would Beauden Barrett never be in the side? He's always in the side. Richie Mwanga joining him, the man who, if Beauden Barrett wasn't there, Richie Mwanga would just be the starting fly half in any team, wouldn't he? Ever. He's so good. I mean, the ability they have in that number 10 shirt for New Zealand is awesome. They're also being joined by Stephen Profiter. I'm not sure of that guy at all. It's so interesting that so many of these people coming in from new debutants are people that I've never even heard of, which is quite surprising. I mean, I haven't really caught up with the Super Rugby a lot this year, which is why a couple of bit of knowledge gaps will be in for me here with terms of the Southern Hemisphere of rugby. But literally within a year and a half, these have gone from names that I would probably be able to tell you a lot about, a lot of the New Zealand club level teams, to now these are names I've not even heard of, and they're already in an All Black side. It must show the depth that's coming through in that New Zealand club level. In terms of the centres then, Jack Goodhue, David Havili, Rieko Ioane, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who I've heard a bit of, there's a couple of waves about this lad. He's coming up now and he's really beginning to make a bit of an impact. I have heard that name coming around. Sheck is one of the people that I believe is like the one to watch throughout the series in terms of New Zealand. A lot of people very excited about where he'll be in terms of his New Zealand career. And then finally, Quinn Tupaia. I like Quinn Tupaia. He's just a really hard man to stop. I think this is a nice range of centres. There's a couple of people missing there. I know they really like going for Anton Linnett-Brown. I've never been 100% set on Anton Linnett-Brown, so not that much of a miss for me, but I know a lot of people like him. David Havili's a good player. Jack Goodhue. Rieko Ioane is a bit more utility. Of course, started out his career playing in that wing position, so if they need him to, he can swap to wing. He can also play centre, so I don't think that's a bad move. I think that's a nice spread of centres. I think they'll be able to do okay there. And then finally in that back three, we've got Geordie, Barrett, Caleb Clark. Caleb Clark, that's nice to see Caleb. We haven't really seen a lot from Caleb Clark in terms of international rugby. I thought he played really well when I was watching him play at the Blues. Bit of discipline issues, probably the only thing I would say for Caleb Clark. I've seen him get quite a few cards. He plays very rough. It's because he's a big lad who plays on the wing, and he certainly will come in and smash you. So I maybe just discipline, but he's still quite a young lad. Maybe a bit more experience, a bit more growth. He'll be able to get back in the side a bit more constantly. Okay, who's ready to watch me butcher someone's name here? So then we've also got Lester Faingahanuku. Hopefully. I'm awfully sorry. I do really try when it comes down to these pronunciations. I did watch a couple of videos specifically with this lad's name, and I can't do it off the top of my head. Don't know a lot about him. Again, a lot of people are talking about form around this lad, so hopefully it'd be nice to see what he can get up to. Really strong competition, to be fair, in this back three in order to get into this team, let alone be able to play a game. We've also got the likes of Will Jordan and Severis in here. So these are lads that I believe they're picking this back three based on current form, which is nice to see. There are a couple of lads missing out here. People like George Bridge. They've always seemed to go for George Bridge in New Zealand. I've never really seen that much from George Bridge. I'm not really sure why they were always so confident to go for him. But he's been dropped from the team, so surely they're going a bit more off form now. So nice to see there. And again, utility that New Zealand just sort of have. New Zealand love this ability for people to play in multiple positions. You've got Geordie Barrett, Will Jordan, both comfortable playing fullback and wing. Geordie Barrett can also play fly half as well if you really need him to. So I think there's some good coverage there across the board. In terms of names missing off there, like I said, George Bridge. No Damien McKenzie. I think Damien McKenzie is now not playing in New Zealand, if I'm correct. I think he's moved abroad, and I think New Zealand are quite hard line on playing for New Zealand club level teams to get in the All Blacks sides. That might be a bit of a move there. But overall, in terms of a back three, I think they're looking strong. I think this is looking like a good team. So what do we think about the team going off to play Ireland then? So I think this is a good team. There's a lot of big names coming back into this team, which is really nice. I know they've had a couple of things with injuries and stuff. They had a couple of long games last year where they lost to Ireland last year. Playing away in Ireland is a really difficult task. And if you're a Wales supporter like me, apparently playing at home against Ireland is also a really difficult task if you watch the Six Nations. So I think they've got a better chance of this one now. They'll be playing, in their home stadiums and stuff, so they'll be able to have a bit more of a chance here. Bit of a home crowd behind them against an Ireland team who's been playing pretty well, to be honest. Key areas to look at here. Now, Ireland are getting better in so many areas. In terms of the line out is a situation I really see a lot now from Ireland. So many key jumpers in terms of that line out area. So I think New Zealand have called this correct in terms of having so many strong locks in there. Scott Barrett, Brodie Retallick, Sam Whitelock, they're the three that to me would jump out and I would be putting in the team. So I think that's a really good move. In terms of the breakdown situation is another key area for Ireland. Ireland are awesome in terms of the breakdown. I would say Ireland, one of the big things for them is just being able to control the speed of the ball. I think New Zealand are technically going to be faster in terms of the breakdown. We saw the new laws coming in Super Rugby, the way they were changing rucks and how it was sort of being implemented a bit into international. I think New Zealand by default will be slightly quicker at the breakdown. However, I think what Ireland do very well is just having the right number of jacklers, the right number of people to commit into the rucks. And when they have the ball themselves, they actually are able to dictate the speed. For anyone who watched the Ireland versus Scotland breakdown video that I did, that was for the Six Nations last year. But I still think it resonates a lot with the team as it currently stands in how Ireland like to play in terms of that line-out situation. So I think they've done a good move there by trying to shut down as much of the Ireland line-out as possible. In terms of the backs, Ireland love to just launch backs now. We're beginning to see more and more younger players coming in, along with some of the older cap players now. It's people like Ringrose and Aki. We know what those lads bring, but you've got to be able to defend them. And that's the thing. Ireland love their set play. So you want to be having good defensive workers and people that are going to tackle hard. I think that's probably why you'll see the likes of Caleb Clark coming in. Quinn Tupaia and David Havili, I think, are also pretty good defensively in the back. Beauden Barrett will put his life on the line if he really needs to. I think they've got a good range here at just trying to shut down what strengths Ireland will bring to these games. It'll just be a matter of how they're able to do it. One thing I would be looking at in this sort of situation is we got to see in that New Zealand-France game at the end of last year, if you cast your mind all the way back, what can happen if a team begins to take over control of a New Zealand team. The game begins to get a bit messy. and one team's able to cope with it a bit better. Ireland are slightly different. Ireland don't really tend to play the messy game. Ireland are very structured in how they play, even the way they just played through the phases and play set plays. I'd never understand why Ireland do quite so well. If you watch their set play from a breakdown situation, they will always run this loop. But they always do. Or they play the one dummy runner and they pass out the back. There's very few set plays they tend to use, and for whatever reason, a lot of teams don't seem to have them covered. Maybe there's a bit of nuance there I'm missing. So for me, what I'd be wanting to see from this New Zealand team is the ability to shut down the set play. Because I think with a team like Ireland, what we've seen in the past is if they get to dictate the speed of the game, they can really take control and they just play it how they want to. They'll change between box kicks, playing territory. They know they're confident in their line-out situation. So the way that you play this game to me is you bring the game to Ireland. You play aggressively. You try and work out what they're going to be doing in terms of the set play. You hit that back man. You don't fall for the dummy runner and you just try and pin them back and you actually force them to kick. Don't allow them to make the choice to choose the kicks that they want to, but you actually force them into it and then you actually work on the counter-attack. Ireland are very good defensively and being able to support your own play is going to be very good. And I think having speedy forwards who are also going to be good in the breakdown. I think calls like having Papali, Surveyor, I think people like Cody Taylor have got some good speed on them. I think having players like that in fast forwards, I think will be a bit of a key area. But overall, I think New Zealand have probably called this pretty well. They've got quite a solid team with only sort of 5 or 6 new caps coming in. We've seen sort of similar numbers across some of the other teams, but we've certainly seen more in some of the other teams. So I think they've got this right bit of experience coming in there, but also giving the opportunity just to a couple of lads that maybe in the second or third game, let them get in there, let them get a bit of game time against Ireland, because it could be a team they could be coming up against in the World Cup. And not just coming up against, you could be getting knocked out by them in the World Cup. It's a huge game. They need to be winning this, as do Ireland. This will be a really, really good test for what we get to see in the World Cup. But there we have it, guys. That is going to be the video for today, talking about the New Zealand team. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Is there anyone missed off that you wish they'd really included in this team? Is there anyone that's got into the team that you think should not be there? Because, again, some of the Southern Hemisphere teams, I do struggle with a bit more than the Northern Hemisphere teams. I do try my best to get involved with them. So I really actually do appreciate when people put comments down about some of the key people to look out for or just a bit of information about the teams. It does really help me and it helps me make better content for you guys. If you've enjoyed this video today, make sure to leave it a like and to keep up to date with all the information around the July internationals, including potentially a bit of a fantasy league going on. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. I hope you all enjoyed today, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.